As you know, it is a total mess, it's chaos, and it's currently a failed state. And one of the reasons why here at the Tricontinental we wanted to organise something is first fill a gap, inform you on what's happening, because that gap isn't being filled by the mainstream media, who are simply not fulfilling their duty and telling you and letting you know what is happening. But I think it's also an opportunity, and I think given recent events in Paris where freedom of speech and France is all the rage, I think it's an opportunity for us at Tricontinental to do our little J'accuse moment. And I think we really need to point to who the culprits are. And the culprits are obviously the governments who were responsible for this onslaught and the consequences of it. Public opinion who really wasn't on board and didn't really live up to its duty the way it had done in the past, holding to account its government who actually went to war. And a war has consequences, and I think the people who elect politicians need to hold their politicians to account. And of course the media, I mean the media played a major role in selling this conflict. It deflected from all the other opportunities to actually avoid conflict, and instead of pushing and informing the people of all the other opportunities that there were to actually bring about reconciliation in Libya, they beat the drums of war continuously, making this conflict palatable to public opinion and therefore making this bombing campaign, a 6-month-long onslaught on the entire coastline of Libya, absolutely acceptable. And as a result, obviously, there have been scores of people killed. The entire infrastructure of the country has been destroyed. It now hosts, obviously, various militias from God knows where and God knows who. It's threatening to engulf the wider Arab world, and of course it's already having consequences on the African continent. It's a very, very serious hour for Libya, for the Arab world again, and for Africa. And I'm hoping that tonight, through our various speakers, you'll get a better understanding of the situation. Without further ado, I'll start with our first speaker, and I have to read my notes because he's quite, he's got quite a CV. So our first speaker is a Libyan academic, Mabruk Derbash. He's a writer and academic. He's a graduate from Royal Road in Canada. He's worked as a professor in Tripoli University, sorry. He now teaches internationally. His work has been published in Al Arabi newspaper, in Calgary Herald, in Quds, and he regularly appears from BBC Speaks, I think, for BBC Radio and for Al Jazeera. So without further ado, please welcome Dr. Mabruk Derbash.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Hafsa, and I thank you all for. I speak softly, so I hope you can hear me. I want to thank everybody for inviting me here, with the organizers. Thank you all for coming. I just wanted to make it very clear that the people who had a problem with NATO was not related to Gaddafi for us. I mean, Mustafa, for example, a colleague of mine, I haven't seen him in years and years. We used to be young and used to criticize Gaddafi when we were kids. And we used to speak against Gaddafi all the time because Gaddafi was the establishment for us. We were, the young revolutionaries, or kids, and we were lefties, and even Gaddafi himself was for us an establishment. So I wanted to make this disclaimer. It's not about the position of government. It's not about political position, but it's about the nation of Libya. And there is no excuses are made for the problems that were in Libya before what happened in February 2011, and this should not allow us to make any other excuse either for what happened afterwards. But allow me to give you an idea. I think the West, and this is where we start, the West, I think, got philosophical with Libya and used the term moral equivalency, which you guys probably know about from the term that is used quite a bit when it comes to the Israeli or the Jewish-Palestinian conflict. So Gaddafi is a dictator. He's had quarrels with the West, many, if I may add. He had issues. He opposed everything that is Western. He's a nationalist. So many things. So for them, he represented the evil that is on the other side of the aisle. So for that, we can really do anything we want. We can destroy the country. We can destroy its infrastructure. We can destroy its army, about 30,000 soldiers Libyan soldiers. This is an estimate, and I'm being very, I'm not really telling you exactly what other people are saying. I'm just giving you the lower end of the estimation, which is about 50,000 army individuals of the Libyan army have been killed, assassinated. I mean, when you have an Apache that is hunting soldiers in their camps, sitting in their camps, that's an assassination. That's not a war. And power plants, hospitals, schools, TV stations, speaking of, we're talking about the Paris thing now. I mean, TV station, I think Sukant was there during the time when the TV station was bombed. And in Tripoli, a TV station was bombed by NATO, by the British and the French government. And so, but I mean, all that, I'm sure most of you are followers of what's going on in Libya, so let's not reminisce over why Gaddafi was taken out, why Gaddafi was an issue for a lot of people in the West. It was not an issue for a lot of people in that part of the world. Gaddafi's horizon, or Gaddafi's world, is not Libya. It goes beyond that. I mean, the West manipulated lots of things. I mean, you can manipulate anything. You can talk about Gaddafi as being an influence, and that's for them, it's a problem. To a lot of people, that's a good thing. So, but let's talk about what happened after the taking out of Gaddafi, after the assassination of Gaddafi, basically. And we have religious schools, radical religious schools are built in Libya, and that's a fact that most people should know. And these schools are actually bringing up, the Al-Qaeda, ISIS, Wahhabi, whatever you want to call it, whatever the term you have, because they have different schools of thought. And these schools are separate, are all over Libya right now. And women's rights are not being curtailed. They're being actually completely dismissed. I mean, in the glorious manifestation of their biggest event, the new regime in Libya declared that women now, men have the rights to marry for women. This is the first thing they did. This is the first speech of the February regime. I mean, if you just go back to the official document and you'll find it. Actually, it was in the third or the fourth sentence. So it gives you an idea what kind of government is coming, what kind of people are here, and it gives you an idea of what the thought process behind all this. Education and civil institutions are being replaced by militias, institutions. So basically, you have police stations that are replaced by militia group, acts as a police station. You go to the police station, they tell you, no, we can't do anything. We don't even have guns. We can't even issue a warrant. You go to them. They'll actually point to them, and they're next door. And these guys can do whatever you want them to do. They can carry out arrest without any cause. I mean, they're a militia, and they're militias, and most of them are prison graduates. So, in the last 15 years, there's been a development in Libya. If you're familiar with Libya, it's been development in Libya that the infrastructure has been updated. So a lot of contracts have been given out to new bridges, new hospitals, new schools, new energy plants, sustainability programs and projects. And the estimates for those are about $100 billion at the cost of the government expenditure on that. These projects are being completely cancelled. And actually, the ones that were in existence are being damaged on purpose, just to show that Gaddafi didn't do anything in the past 40 years. Imagine, just Gaddafi sat in power, came and didn't do anything for 40 years, and just watch and just control people. That's what he did. Most of these people, by the way, who said that, they were sent out of Libya to study, and were paid for by the government money. So these graduates who were paid by taxpayers' money, Libyan money, and now coming back and saying, well, we had no expenditure in the last 4 years. The Gaddafi government was just a regime that was just sitting in people's chests and just doing nothing. Another thing, there's an estimate of about, and again, I'm going with the lower estimates here, about 12,000 prisoners. In contrast, when I said that all the contracts were canceled for the Libyan infrastructure, updating the Libyan infrastructure over the last 15 years, is the last 4 years, only contracts for prisons have been issued. And those contracts for prison, imagine that, a whole revolution that's working now for 4 years, only was able to build prisons. Those prisons are built by British contractors and French contractors and sadly Canadian contractors. Sadly for me, personally. Another results for people who really are familiar with the Western history with black people, there's about 40,000 blacks from the city of Tawarga and other cities as well being displaced. 40,000 people in modern day have been displaced because of their color, because of what they look like. And they've been taken out of their city completely. And now they live refugees around cities in Libya. They live in camps. They don't have power. Their children don't go to school for 4 years now. 1.5, some say 2 million. I think it's about 1.5 million people are being displaced outside of Libya. These people are not given refugee status on purpose. These people are in Europe, in Egypt, in Tunisia. They're thought of as tourists. Imagine that. I mean, you're a refugee. You're running for your life, and the world, United Nations, and the Western powers are not considering you as a refugee. Even here in London, in England, we have some of Libyans, some of them in this room. The government knows that these people are actually here because if they go back to Libya, they'll be killed, but they still have not given them refugee status. So they are living in a wormhole. Like they have no idea. They're just hanging there. They have no idea, no status whatsoever. Again, hospitals and power plants were destroyed during the fighting in the last, you probably followed the fighting in the last year, but also before that. And the absence of fiscal policy. On top of that, government expenditure on just salaries to those militia groups jumped. I mean, they count those salaries as government expenditure salaries for civil servants. So the salary, how we count that, the salary, the civil servant's salary was about 7 billion before that. Now it's 29. So imagine how much has been spent on those militias. And local press completely eliminated. There is nothing. There is no newspaper in Libya except the one that speaks for the February Revolution, which means everything is good. Flowers are coming out every morning, and the birds are singing. Freedom now, we got rid of Gaddafi, now you can inhale freedom. And the ones that speak out, they're actually outside of Libya. Even the ones that belong to the government, the new government. I mean, you got the ones that have been subsidized by the Qatar government, the one that's called Libya al-Ahrar, or Libyan Freedom, is actually located in Qatar. Another newspaper is called Al-Wasat, is in Egypt. Even those ones who speak once in a while, they talk, they tell the truth once in a while, once a year maybe. And they tell you that they can't even stay in Libya. And their offices in Libya, it's been destroyed or burned. And the local journalists, especially the women, are raped or assassinated. Political activists, women, I mean, you've heard about the lady in Benghazi who just got assassinated in her home. And she was on the phone with the TV station at the same time, and they killed her in cold blood. There's nobody is really saying, no, we didn't do this. They actually take responsibility for all this. I'm not making these things up based on my understanding of things. That's what they say. And finally, we have an ISIS-controlled cities, like the city of Derna, for example. It's not part of Libya anymore. It's an ISIS city. It belongs to the group in Iraq, and we have another one. They are those radical groups, by the way. They are they're not all the same. So we have, we're blessed in Libya by having all of them: Al Qaeda, ISIS, Al Wahhabis, Salafis. I mean, we've heard names now, the Ansar Sharia, like the people who believe in Sharia and their form of Sharia or understanding of Sharia. And so now Al-Qaeda, it's almost like a competition between them. ISIS took Derna, Al-Qaeda took Sirte. So, and you probably guys know where Derna is. Derna is in the east of Libya, Sirte is in the middle of Libya. Etc., etc. I mean, a lot of things. Most of you guys know more about this, and you probably heard more about this, and some of you know a lot more about this and what happened after the February of 2011. So, we, Libyan intellectuals, or Libyan people in general, are very angry. And we're angry because of many things that the West is doing on top of this. I mean, the intervention in Libya was not, to begin with, was a mistake. What follows was even a greater mistake. What the policy's been taken after, even after the West realized that they screwed up, they still make the mistake because they cannot admit that they screwed up. So, we're angry with the British policy, with this third rate thinking, and I'll give you an example of that. There was a gentleman in working for the British government in Kuwait, and he was the ambassador of Britain to Kuwait. His name is, I'll wait for his name. Some of you probably know him. But he was taken after just 1 year of his placement. He's supposed to be there for 4 years. The reason why he was taken out of there because he had sex with his subordinate. He's married with 4 children, and he had sex with a female, married female who was working for him in the embassy, the British embassy in Kuwait. This gentleman, after he's been taken out of Kuwait, has been sent to Libya. His name is Mabruk Derbash. This reminds me really of what Cameron says about Christmas values and all that. I'm not sure if this is part of exporting values to the Islamic world. So they took the worst kind of the Foreign Office, a man who has no ethics, and they sent him to be making the decisions for the Foreign Office in Libya. And this is the things that we have. And this is just a little example. This Arwan guy keeps on going from. He knows all the militias. He has contacts with all the militias. He hasn't spoken to any of the activists in Libya, either from the previous government or the new government. He only has connections with those militias, and he manipulates things, he makes things worse, and this guy is the one is responsible for making policies for Britain. Another point I would like to mention that when Libyans tried to have a democracy in Libya through a new parliament, that was after this debacle took place and tried to settle down, and they had an election. And for some reason, Libyans didn't take the religious group, the Islamic Brotherhood. It shows that Libyan people really have a different view of what the radical groups are. Their understanding is more maybe mature than what the West thinks. So the West thought, no, we need to insert a government that is related to the government. During that time, there was the Islamic Brotherhood were winning in Egypt. So Hillary Clinton visited Libya and instructed the new parliament to split and to change the votes from having 80% liberals or secular or a secular group to and 20% or 15% Islamic Brotherhood to 50-50. So that's what the West did, and Libyan people at that point felt a little bit disappointed about what the Americans and what the British and understood at that point what they meant by the word democracy. we don't have much time here to go over a lot of things, but I mean, to conclude this, I would like to say that we need to work together to defrag all these missing parts. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your opinion of Gaddafi. Libya now in a very dismal state. The disarray of Libya is beyond any nightmare you can think of. People don't go to school. Women don't go shopping. You can get shot in the street without any reason, without any reporting. If you are from a certain family or a certain tribe or certain cities, you can be taken out. Again, I told you the number of prisoners in Libya. I mean, Gaddafi used to be called out for having 120 radical Muslims in prison. Now there's about 12,000 people, and that's the official number from Human Rights Watch, which I don't trust fully, but I'm just, this is the number. So 12,000. I think the number is greater than that because I know the way things work in Libya. There's prisons and houses. There's a family we heard about just the last 3 months. A whole family of 16 members were imprisoned in the last 4 years in their own house. Were prisoners in the basement. And nobody knows anything about them. They've been raped, men and women, in their house for the last 4 years. So you have these sort of prisons that are unofficial. Human Rights Watch do not go there, and even if they go there, they would not, it's very hard to report. So my idea is my terrorist could be your hero, and I understand this, the West may think that way. Your hero is my enemy, and but I'm willing to make friends with the enemy if the goal is to really advance some sort of solution to the things that are happening in Libya. There has to be a paradigm shift in Libya. The way this third-rate thinking by the British government and the French government needs to change. I've been told that I already have a few seconds, so I want to thank you all, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you.